Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Rachel Miller, and I wanted to welcome you all to episode 5 of our 10 Minutes to Highly Effective Service webinar series. The purpose of this series is to focus on just one aspect of providing great dealer service each month. Before we get started, a couple of items to note. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar if you have a question or comment for any of our speakers today. There will be a Q&A portion at the end of the presentation. We would also appreciate it if you would complete the brief survey that will pop up on your screen once the webinar has ended. Your speakers for today are eAdvisor's Brian Michaels, Senior Sales Engineer, and Paige Cromer, National Sales Performance Strategist. And with that, I will pass things off to Paige.
Hi, everyone. The prices of our maintenance services tell our customers a lot about the cost of our services overall, and perhaps just as important is how we present them. We only have 10 minutes and then some time for Q&A at the end. You're up, Brian.
Hi, everyone. Back some years ago, it was all the rage to have a competitive price board on display. We don't see them that much anymore, but these boards would display your prices in comparison with the other shops in your area. At that time, the dealers were battling the stigma of dealerships being super high priced, and frankly, we were thought of as ripoffs. Even though this strategy was necessary, it also made price a focal point, unfortunately. This perception still exists today, and sometimes it's not a perception. Maintenance pricing is very important because these are the most visible prices and are easily comparable to the competition in the area. The competition will use these prices to make the case that we're overpriced and even call us bad names. Understand, we do not have to be the lowest price. We have to be reasonably competitive and reliably consistent. We can't rely on quality alone to substantiate a higher price for these services. People expect they will get an acceptable level of quality no matter what shop they choose.
That's right. These days, telling customers we do quality work around here is not a message that will move people. It's not effective in substantiating higher prices. Quality work is only a qualifier. It doesn't get you the win. It only gets you in the game. Everyone says that they're number one in customer satisfaction, number one in this area or that. If you suck at fixing cars, everyone will know it. Saying that you don't suck at fixing cars is not meaningful to potential customers. The cost of the work is something that affects their decision a lot. Price is important. Ask yourself, how important is price to you? With that in mind, we need to have a strategy that will demonstrate that your pricing is reasonable and in line with what they would pay at any reputable shop in town. Well, how do we accomplish this? First, develop a competitive maintenance pricing strategy. Next, enable effective presentations via family pricing. And last, enable effective family pricing via weighted cost averaging.
Maintenance pricing tells potential customers and some recent new car purchasers a lot about who we are. Look at the prices you have on your website. If your prices for wiper blades, air filters, brake jobs, etc. are competitive, you have a great chance at winning that business. Now that's a great start. However, what about the customers who call in asking for prices? Can your advisors quote simple maintenance prices quickly and accurately? What about your BDC? Can your BDC people do it? Most importantly, can your service advisors do it on the service lane when the customer actually comes in? Remember, for this webinar, we're talking about maintenance work. Quoting repair work is another topic for another webinar. Now, most people believe dealerships have to charge more because of overhead, etc. And unfortunately, even most dealership employees believe that too. Yet it's simply not true. Maintenance work is easier and it requires less skill. You can turn it more quickly with less experienced, lower cost tech labor. Your cost per hour to perform will be lower and you'll be keeping a strong GP percentage. This kind of work helps your less experienced techs develop into more experienced techs, and it allows them to make a good living while they're doing it. It's also great for technician morale. And very importantly, it helps you keep your brand promise to your customers as an OEM dealer to advise them on the proper maintenance for their vehicles. But if you're like most dealers, your pricing strategy is likely costing you sales, customers, and repeat business on the showroom.
If you make it easier for your advisors to confidently present service offerings with the price, they will sell more of them. Every time they hesitate, are not precise, or have to go look it up, their close rate drops. And frankly, they often just stop even presenting. This is not good. You can fix this with family pricing. There seems to be no rhyme or reason for the way parts are priced by the OEM sometimes. Ask any parts professional. Family pricing simplifies things and customers like it. They perceive it as fair and easy to understand. Advisors don't like it, they love it. If your air filters are sold at the same price, you'll sell more of them. The same is true for cabin air filters, wiper blades, brakes, and other items. We all know this, don't we? Make it simple for your advisors. Make it simple for your customers. You'll sell more and customers will take better care of their cars. Everyone wins. Weighted cost averaging is the key. It's not complicated and it's easily managed. I mean, it's not algorithms and the square root of x to the third power. It's just simple math. Some DMS systems even have functions built in to help with this, but frankly, most don't. You can do this yourself, however, with an exported report and a simple spreadsheet. Brian, tell us all about it.
Okay, you got it. First, always quote one price. Do not separate parts and labor. You'll only complicate things for the customer when you do that, so don't do that. If the customer asks for a breakdown, then of course do it for them, but when you present with confidence, they rarely do. But let's talk about weighted cost averaging and do a quick analysis of cabin filters as an example. Run a report of the cabin filters you sold over the last 6 months or 3 months, whatever you think is a good sample. If you do a lot of volume, maybe just 1 month will do it. If you're lower volume, maybe 3 months or 6 months is pretty typical. Parts managers know how to do this, but if they don't, call your DMS provider will get it done pretty easily, or you can even type the numbers in if you want to. It's a pretty simple calculation. Take a look at this data from one of my dealer clients. If you take the total number of cabin filters, the pieces sold in a given period, and then divide that into the total cost you paid for those cabin filters to the OEM, you'll get a weighted cost average. This is how it works. From this example, let's take a look at the cabin filters sold over a period of time. The most popular filter, for example, cost the dealer $13.35 each from the OEM, not counting incentives, and they sold 98 of them. So they paid the OEM $13.08 for those filters. The second most popular was only 20 pieces, and they cost a total of $277, and so on. All totaled, the dealer paid the OEM $27.27 for those 179 filters they sold in that time period. When you divide 179 into 27.27, you'll find that the weighted average cost is $15.24. Once you have that number, you can do a couple of things. You can set the gross percentage you want to make on cabin filters to determine the price that you're going to charge. In this case, if you want to make 50% gross, you can sell them all for $30.47. Or if you determine that there's a particular price that you need to compete in your market, you can set that price and see what it means to your gross percentage. So in this case, if you set the price to $39.95, your gross percentage will be 61.9%. By the way, if you want a copy of this calculator, I'll be happy to send it to you. So here's the thing, even if you double the number of cabin filters that you sell, there's no reason to believe that the mix will change very much. And you'll still get the gross that you planned on. You can always run another analysis every month or quarter or even a year as costs may change. You can do this for any part category. Now, when you look at the list, you may see a couple of exceptions that you want to make, but be careful. When you make exceptions, you cause the advisor to be hesitant, less confident, they'll want to look things up, and this is going to cost you sales. Finally, in your DMS, you can put all of these parts into a separate source, and you can set that source to update the cost from the OEM parts master, but not update the sale price. When you do this, you'll not have to reset the sale prices every time an update is performed. Every DMS does this a little bit differently, and if you don't know how to do it, just contact your DMS provider for support.
At eAdvisor, our organization is comprised mostly of experienced dealership people with expertise in the various aspects of running a service and parts operation. We do more than just sell you a tool. eAdvisor helps you with the things that really matter. Here's one more thing you may want to consider about providing maintenance on your customers' vehicles. An advisor's confidence in what they're recommending is paramount. It affects their presentation rate and their close rate. Advisors have confidence in recommendations from the OEM. And if your advisors sold all of the OEM recs to every customer that came in, you would be swimming in high value maintenance work. eAdvisor's maintenance menus make this possible. Yes, we have dealer-based recommendations too. Wheel alignments, wipers, FI cleaning, fluid services. These are easy to set up, but eAdvisor provides the specific OEM recs at the specific mileage of that specific vehicle. When you have a product like eAdvisor and you find you have all of these OEM services to offer each of your customers every time, you may want to ask yourself, do I need to ask my advisors to present those other services? You know what I mean. Moving on. While many products coming at you these days have interesting functionality, not many of them result in tangible gains in revenue, efficiency, and improving the customer experience. None of them are embraced by service advisors the way eAdvisor is. Advisors love eAdvisor because it helps them and makes it easier for them to do a better job. They get more done in less time and they don't forget steps, which creates a higher quality and more consistent experience for the customer. If you're currently an eAdvisor customer, we really appreciate you. Please tell your dealership friends about us. If you've not yet experienced eAdvisor yet, call today and schedule a demo. You'll be glad you did. Okay, on to Q&A. Rachel, what have you got for us?
Thank you, Brian and Paige. That concludes this episode of 10 Minutes to Highly Effective Service. We've had some great questions come in and we have some time to answer those live. Our first question looks like it might be for you, Brian. Hey, Brian and Paige, these are really helpful. Thank you for doing these. How do I get a copy of that spreadsheet that you went kind of fast on how to use? Can you explain it a bit more?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, you can just email me or even call me from the number on the eAdvisor website. But listen, when it comes to the sorry about that. When it comes to the spreadsheet, it's really simple. So what you can do is you can just download a list of the parts that you sold over a certain time period. You can grab the parts, from that particular category, let's say air filters, cabin filters, even brakes or whatever you want to do. And you can paste them into that spreadsheet and that spreadsheet will do the calculation for you automatically. Okay, so once you get it, I think you'll see that it's pretty easy to use. Does that answer hopefully that answers the question, but I can explain more when you get it.
Thank you, Brian. And Paige, I think this is for you. I've looked at doing this before. My advisors think it's not fair to the customers. Who would pay less for the cheaper part? What's your response to them?
Well, that's a great question. I was actually going to talk a little bit more about this, but since we try to keep it under 10 minutes, we missed it by just a few seconds this time. But anyway, what I was saying earlier is that parts pricing is really all over the map. We see that all over. Who knows why a particular part is priced the way it is? It doesn't make a lot of sense, honestly, but it's not relevant. Advisors often assume that customers know the same price or the same things they do, but they don't. They just want the job done and done well. They want a clear understanding and they want a fair price. They know they're going to pay for it, but they just want it to know that it's fair. Now, 2 additional points. Many dealers are using a price matrix, and enough said there. That's a lot of time consuming work for you guys. But what about those customers who will pay less for that more expensive part? So there's some things to think about.
Thank you, Paige. What about these exponentially high price parts in the category? How many exceptions should I make? I may lose money on some of those parts.
I'll take that one, Paige. So listen, if you go strictly by the math, you wouldn't have to make any exceptions. Truly, it's all baked into the cake. You'll not have anybody storming your service lane to get that more expensive air filter just because you're selling it for less. it's just going to make it easier to quote the prices. But even if they did, you could make that exception if you wanted to, or you could adjust, the prices you want to charge. And it would be really pretty rare to actually lose money on a part, but the margins may get a little thin on some of the more expensive ones. But just ask yourself this: how many of those customers who paid the higher price for that part when the car was newer never really came back because of it? And when then when the OEM starts to adjust the prices down to be lower, those customers are long gone. So we've all seen it when the part first comes out, it has a real high price and it starts to come down over time. But you can lose some of those customers early on and they'll never come back. So I would say the math will hold up. If you look at all the parts in that category you sold and you perform the weighted cost averaging analysis to it, you can sell them all and keep your margin. It's not going to change.
Thank you, Brian. And I know we're over time, but this is another good question. So here's our last question of today's webinar. My parts manager fights me on this because he says it's too difficult to manage. You said it's not. Can you explain that again?
Yeah, Paige, I'll take this one too. Parts managers will say this. They'll say, "Oh, I don't want to have to keep changing the prices every time a parts update runs." Well, listen, after you update the sale price on all these parts, which you can typically do as a mass operation in your DMS, you move those parts to a separate source in your DMS. And on that source, you set it to always update the cost from the OEM because you want to keep the gross profit correct on the statement, or at least on the doc sheet. But have it not update the sale price. So again, you update costs, but don't update sale price. When the parts OEM master runs, it will do just that. So sometimes this setting is kind of difficult to find, but I'm sure a quick call to your DMS provider will help you do that. When a new part number is added, you just update the sale price on that, move it to that source, and you're good to go. So thanks, everybody. Good questions. Great questions.
Yes. Thank you to everyone for your time today, and those of you that submitted your questions. If we didn't have a chance to answer yours live, we will reach out to you individually. We'll also be sending out a copy of the recording